Kong knocked out one of the strongest versions of Godzilla we've ever seen. So what happens if he fights every major titan in the Monsterverse back to back? First debuting in Kong Skull Island, even at a young age, he was throwing hands with all sorts of creatures. Flash forward to Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla X Kong, he's so powerful he can not only contend with Godzilla, but even knock him out. We'll be taking Kong, pairing him with his recently acquired Beast Glove and his signature Godzilla dorsal plated axe, and seeing how far he can make it in his own universe. We'll be asking the question, how far does Kong get against the strongest Monsterverse titans? Hello everyone, I'm Minya FDA, here to manage what goes into your kaiju content for today. In today's video, Kong will be thrown in a gauntlet against titans of progressing strength. After every battle, if he moves on, he'll be regenerated to full strength like nothing even happened. His bracket consists of many different titans, which include GXK Sila, Rodan, the MUTO pair, GXK Tiamat, Mecha Godzilla, MUTO Prime, Base Godzilla and Godzilla X Kong, Ghidorah, and lastly Shimo. Kong is already one of the most powerful titans the Monsterverse has to offer, despite what some people would like to believe. So before we see how he fares against this lineup of titans, let's break down exactly what the King of Skull Island has to offer. Kong has shown some very impressive feats overall. Kong is directly said to punch with the strength of a 4.2 magnitude earthquake. Throughout the entirety of GVK, he was still slightly under anesthetic and was able to fight and win against a toying Godzilla in round 2. But then he literally died in round 3. After being revived, was able to hold back Mechagodzilla's arm and tail drill. His axe, when charged for several hours in the Hollow Earth, and by Godzilla's own atomic breath, was able to stab into Godzilla's leg, and later was able to slice Mechagodzilla into pieces. In GXK, Kong is said to be the strongest he's ever been. He was able to easily overpower the gang of apes that briefly held him down. He was able to free himself from Scar King's chokehold and throw him off of him. The more impressive stuff comes from his Beast Glove. In his fight with Godzilla in Egypt, Godzilla was unable to break through the Beast Glove with his jaw. What's even more impressive is what the Beast Glove did to this evolved version of Godzilla. With a single punch, it was able to send him to the ground, and after a series of punches, was able to even knock him out. However, despite all of Kong's punches, they were never able to physically injure Godzilla. Now that sole feat belongs to his charged axe. Kong is almost as fast as evolved Godzilla, incredibly strong, and arguably the smartest titan in the Monsterverse. But before we get into the fights, we need to go into one aspect that he falls short in comparison to a lot of these titans: durability. Kong's hand started bleeding from a single bite from Godzilla in their battle in the Tasman Sea. Kong had his arm dislocated from being slammed into a building. He was then basically killed by Godzilla stomping on his chest in GVK, only surviving in Egypt thanks to the sand. He then had his hand sliced into by the crystal on the end of Scar King's whip. He was grazed for half a second from Godzilla's already weakened atomic breath, which sends him flailing to the ground, and even left a scar on his back. Barely being touched by Shimo's frostbite blast was enough to virtually incapacitate him as he fell unconscious from his injuries. Overall, despite Kong's seemingly lackluster durability, in comparison to the higher tiers of the Monsterverse, he's still incredibly strong and has shown it countless times. But thanks to the Beast Glove, he gets a slight increase in durability thanks to the steroids. Kong will not only be paired with this Beast Glove, but an already charged axe, as in this scenario, he would have charged it within the Hollow Earth before battling his opponent. With that out of the way, let's dive right into his first matchup against Sila in Godzilla X Kong. Now Sila, by this point in time, had consumed 30 American missiles as she had been storing a large amount of radiation in order to challenge Godzilla. Unfortunately for her, as we all saw, Godzilla made quick work of her in less than a minute. So would it be any different if it was Kong? In the novelization of Godzilla X Kong, even before Kong has his Beast Glove, Eileen Andrews said that she would pity Sila if she was in the Hollow Earth with Kong. Now that Kong is coming right at Sila with a charged axe and Beast Glove, yeah, she's cooked. So with no difficulty, Kong moves on. Next up is Rodan. Now I've seen a lot of people say that a fight between Kong and Rodan is somehow close, and despite me absolutely loving the Monsterverse's incarnation of Rodan, let me be the first one to tell you it's not even close. Rodan was able to withstand a point-blank firing of one of Ghidorah's gravity beams without any physical injury, which was quite impressive. Rodan is also able to fly at supersonic speeds, and Kong was struggling against his first flying titan he fought ever, that being Camazotz. If Rodan plays it smart, he could disorient Kong with a sonic boom here and there, potentially light him on fire thanks to his biovolcanic nature, but in order to do that, Rodan needs to get close, and considering the power of Kong's Beast Glove and axe, one good punch would send Rodan to the ground, and his charged axe would slice right through Rodan. If Kong lacked his weapons, this fight would be the tiniest bit more interesting, but even still, Kong would win. So in this scenario, with low difficulty, Kong moves on. Next up is the MUTO pair. The male and female MUTO are surprisingly slept on. As a duo, they were basically able to beat Godzilla in 2014. I mean, they had him on the brink of death, only being saved by the female MUTO running to her nest. The whole reason the MUTOs were able to do so well against Godzilla was because they were actively nerfing him. Now, the the funny thing about this fight is that the MUTO's nature would actually deplete the axe of energy. But will this be enough? The male MUTO was able to drag around the 90,000 ton Godzilla, and the female MUTO was able to knock him over. Both of them were able to stab into Godzilla and draw blood, and we all know how hard that is to do. Despite this, I think it's safe to say GXK Kong is stronger than Godzilla 2014. Pairing that with his beast glove, he'll make quick work of the duo. Kong would genuinely one-tap the male MUTO, even with a dulled axe, as it was impaled by a building, though it was due to the force of Godzilla's tail swing. And with the male dead, the female MUTO wouldn't fare much better, being rocked by a couple of powered-up punches from the beast glove, and she's dead. So with low difficulty, Kong moves on. Next up is GXK Tiamat. Now again, just like with Rodan, somehow I see people saying this is genuinely a close fight. I mean, did we not see how even when disarmed, Kong was able to rip apart the Drowned Viper? It was confirmed he ripped it apart with his bare hands. Now in no way am I comparing the Drowned Viper to Tiamat, but it just goes to show he's not bad in the water. Even in Godzilla vs. Kong, while under slight sedation, was able to stun Godzilla with a kick to the head and a headbutt. Not to mention, he already fought Tiamat in Survivor Instinct and won. Tiamat in GXK, however, was charged up, so she'd do slightly better. She was able to coil around Godzilla and cause him to shriek in pain. Despite this, Godzilla ripped off one of her fins clean off. This fight between Kong and Tiamat would occur in shallow water, kind of like with the Drowned Viper. While Tiamat's fins would definitely cut into Kong, his axe would very well slice right through Tiamat, and his beast glove would absolutely rock her. Now if this fight occurred in deep water, Tiamat could drown Kong for sure, but in an environment like where he fought the Drowned Viper, Kong would rip apart Tiamat, having slight trouble with her razor sharp fins. So with mid difficulty, Kong moves on. Now we've reached the first opponent that could realistically kill Kong, Mecha Godzilla. Built specifically to overpower Godzilla and be his superior, this is going to be a massive jump from Tiamat in strength. So let's see how Kong would fare. These two have already fought before, and we're going to take a brief trip down memory lane. Back in GVK, Kong was freshly revived to help an extremely weakened Godzilla take Mecha Godzilla down. In their brief encounter, Kong was able to move Mecha Godzilla's head out of the way before it could kill Godzilla. He was able to hold Mecha Godzilla's tail back, though it could be argued that Mecha Godzilla was enjoying seeing Kong struggle. He was able to hold Mecha Godzilla's arm back, and of course, Mecha Godzilla's physical attacks only physically hurt Kong slightly. But most importantly, when Kong's axe was charged, Mecha Godzilla got sliced into literal pieces. As this scenario plays out, Kong's axe is charged by Hollow Earth energy, making the axe even more powerful than it was, considering it was charged only for a couple of seconds by a severely weakened atomic breath. Despite Mechagodzilla's proton scream being a method of one-shotting Kong, its learning algorithms, and supercomputer making it the only opponent smarter than Kong on this list, and his plethora of physical attacks, this fight would play out just like in GVK, but even worse. The axe would slice Mechagodzilla into pieces. Now, if the axe wasn't charged up, you could argue Mechagodzilla could win, as it was directly said in Godzilla x Kong, Mechagodzilla was a threat Kong couldn't even face, and that Project Powerhouse, aka the Beast Glove, would give him a better chance.
After Mechagodzilla, we realized that there were some threats that even Kong couldn't face.
So with Mechagodzilla being literally said to be too much for Kong, Mechagodzilla could very well kill Kong. But as I just said, the axe is charged in this scenario, and Mechagodzilla is cooked. So with mid difficulty at best, Kong moves on. Next up is the MUTO Prime. Now here's the interesting thing with this fight. One of Kong's weapons isn't going to be available. As we all know, the MUTO Prime was able to shatter Godzilla's dorsal plates. Well, what is Kong's axe infused with? A Godzilla dorsal plate. Now does this mean the MUTO Prime would win? Well, this fight is insanely close. So let's go category by category. MUTO Prime is 100% the stronger opponent. Not by a lot thanks to the Beast Glove, but is in fact stronger. While you may point to Kong's Beast Glove knocking over evolved Godzilla and eventually knocking him out, keep in mind it took 12 punches to achieve this feat. If given the opportunity, the MUTO Prime could very well do the same. The Prime was able to send Godzilla flying with one singular punch. Kong is the faster and more agile opponent. No, really? Physical weaponry is actually a tie, as MUTO Prime's massive limbs were again able to send Godzilla flying, and his claws were able to draw blood from Godzilla, which is something not even Kong could do. In this scenario, Kong will have his axe shattered and only has his punches in Beast Glove, which are still effective. Durability is easily the MUTO Prime. The MUTO Prime withstood a direct prolonged blast from Godzilla's atomic breath and stood back up with no damage whatsoever. And you compare that to Kong, who had his hands cut into by a singular bite from Godzilla, dislocated shoulder from slamming into a building, and hand sliced by the crystal on the end of Scar King's whip, the MUTO Prime is definitely more durable. Kong, on the other hand, is the smarter opponent both overall and in terms of battle intelligence, and the MUTO Prime takes abilities. With a final score of 4-5, Kong takes the slight edge overall, but the MUTO Prime takes the far more important categories such as strength, durability, and abilities. With the score alluding to an extremely close fight, who would win? Well, I definitely have to say that Kong would win this fight, but it would be far from easy. For those who have been a fan of the channel for a long time, and hey, if you're new, subscribe to the channel. You can take a look at a video I actually made on this topic, but since then, I have, well, changed my mind. The thing is, Kong is almost as strong as the MUTO Prime thanks to the Beast Glove. With Kong's speed and agility, the MUTO Prime might not land that many attacks. The Prime's main way of fighting would be its seismic concussive blasts and sonic roar. Now you might say that if the MUTO Prime sonic roar could shatter Godzilla's dorsal plates, imagine what it would do to Kong. Well, the sonic roar of MUTO Prime is specifically fine-tuned in order to destroy these dorsal plates, as it's an evolutionary trait to counter Godzilla. So this This wouldn't have the same devastating effect on Kong, but it would still damage him. Kong would land several more attacks, using his agility and speed to weave incoming attacks and avoid others. The Prime would be able to sustain Kong's punches as it's much heavier than Godzilla and maintains a quadrupedal stance, giving it a better center of gravity. With the MUTO Prime's insane durability of being able to directly tank the atomic breath without a scratch, this fight would be close, as if Kong made some mistakes, it wouldn't take much for the MUTO Prime to land a killing blow. But at the end of the day, Kong would drag the fight long enough, thanks to his intelligence, landing far more hits than the Prime, and would eventually take the win. So with high difficulty, if not extreme difficulty, Kong moves on. Now we've reached the king of the monsters himself. Godzilla at this point in time was said to be at the peak of health and power, meaning this is the strongest form of base Godzilla, being stronger than Godzilla 2021 and Godzilla 2019. Just want to quickly clear something up, is that no, this is not comparable to nuke-amped Godzilla. I don't know where people adopted this idea and took off running with it, but if we take a look at said portion in the novel, Godzilla is just naturally capable of holding more radiation than he can at any given time. They're talking about how Godzilla couldn't even contain all of that radiation he was storing in his godlike form, aka his thermonuclear form. Godzilla has been out of combat for a while and has had 3 weeks of sleep. Comparing a critical mass about to explode Godzilla, and for anyone who agrees with Nuke Amp being compared to base GXK Goji, thus comparing base Godzilla to thermonuclear Godzilla to a well-rested Godzilla thanks to a 3-week nap, is a blasphemous take. They are nowhere near close or even comparable in terms of atomic power. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's get into this fight. Base Godzilla naturally can just do everything his previous base self did, but to a slightly better degree. If we flash back to Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla, whilst in an already 50% power state, absolutely ragdolled Kong in round 3. And yes, he was already weakened, as this is after he drilled to the earth and exhausted his atomic breath by toying with Kong in round 2. Not to mention the fight dragging on throughout the night. While Kong is said to be the strongest he's ever been in GXK, it's not going to be an insurmountable leap compared to GVK Kong. There is definitely a difference, but not as large as one might think. Pairing him with his Beast Glove, he was able to knock Godzilla down and eventually knock him out with 12 punches. If this is a fight to the death, where Godzilla understands the full threat of Kong, and there can only be one winner when it's all said and done, I don't see Godzilla taking this in a bloodlusted or maniac-styled manner. Godzilla is simply too strong, too durable, and just as fast as Kong, to where, I mean, what is Kong going to do? To be honest, Kong really got lucky with that punch on Godzilla in Egypt. Oh, and that charge axe, the same one that barely dug into Godzilla's hide? Yeah, against an even healthier Godzilla, it's not going to do much. Godzilla would easily discard the weapon, utilize exactly what he did in GVK, and Kong is, well, dead. I don't see Kong, even with his weapons, beating a fully locked in Godzilla. And I'm not even trying to be funny by saying that. If this is a life or death situation, with Godzilla treating Kong like a threat such as Ghidorah, there won't be any mistakes on his end. So with all of that out of the way, Kong finally stops at base Godzilla. And don't say this is a crazy take or a downplay of Kong. You guys seem to overwhelmingly agree with me on this. Now, Kong wasn't able to finish the gauntlet, but how would he fare against Ghidorah or even Shimo? Stop it. If I see one person say Kong with his weapons is even extreme diffing Ghidorah, I don't even know. That's just pure rage bait. Ghidorah was able to go toe-to-toe with nuke-amped Godzilla. Ghidorah and Shimo are the two most powerful titans in the Monsterverse, excluding Godzilla. And if Kong is stopping at base GXK Goji, Kong is getting evaporated by Ghidorah. Ghidorah would just slam onto him and the sheer force would pin Kong to the ground, drain any energy he has, and kill him. That's not even a debate worth entertaining. Now for Shimo, I mean, we just saw what happened in the movie. The axe isn't gonna help whatsoever. So while Kong is undeniably one of the strongest titans in the Monsterverse, even kings have their limits when faced with a literal god. Against opponents like these, whether it's Godzilla or even his superiors such as Ghidorah and Shimo, as they're both classified in a tier of their own in the novelization, there comes a point where Kong's strength is simply outclassed. Still, the fact that Kong even made it this far speaks to just how formidable the King of Skull Island really is. And there we have it, everyone. If Kong were to fight the strongest titans of the Monsterverse in progressing strength, Kong would actually get pretty far, as he's absolutely one of the strongest titans in the Monsterverse. But the top 3 of the verse, with Ghidorah, Shimo, and Godzilla, those 3 are leagues above the rest. Well, what did you guys think of the video? Do you agree on where he stops? Do you think he'd stop sooner at MUTO Prime, Mecha Godzilla, or even Tiamat? Christ. Or do you think he'd make it even farther, somehow? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And thank you to my channel members for being a member of the channel. And if you want to see videos early, for as little as $2 a month, consider joining. And with the shameless plug out of the way, I've been your host, Minya FDA, managing what goes into your kaiju content for today, and make sure to remember what Godzilla told Manila. See ya!
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles, you know.